Hi, and welcome to episode 29 of the Give Me a Crown Knitting, Spinning and Bits and Pieces podcast. Today is Sunday the 24th of April 2016, and my name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown across the internet. I have a new background behind me for those of you who are returning. I'm just trying out some different locations around the house that I'm house sitting at the moment, just to see where I could get some better light after last week's kind of grey video. Sorry about that. This background's a little bit busy, but I guess my old videos from Sydney used to be busy as well, so we'll see how we go. I probably should clarify that I'm not living in the middle of nowhere. I might have given that impression just because it's quite different out here in the central west of New South Wales to living in the centre of Sydney. I definitely am living in a small town with a couple of hundred people. There isn't that much happening in the town, but all the major things that you'd expect to have access to, medical and hospitals and shops and everything, they're all within a reasonable drive. So my post office is only about a 10-minute walk away, so that's not too bad either. It's a little bit longer than my previous post office, but I think I was a little bit spoiled with that one because that was about a 5 minutes walk and this one's 10, so it makes for a nice daily stroll to pop by the post office to pick up my mail and post off any orders. This week's episode is going to have some works in progress. I don't have any spinning again, but I'm really hoping to get my spinning wheel happening this week, so hopefully next week I'll have some spinning to share with you. I'll also have a bit of shop news at the end, which I don't do too often, as well as a bit of chatter about living in the countryside now that I've been here for a few weeks. I'm wearing my Midnight in Sydney shawl that I knit last year from some hand spun that I spun, and there's also a little bit of Miss Click Clack on the edge, which I think makes it very special. So the Midnight in Sydney shawl is a pattern by Meg Gadsby, who's a wonderful shawl designer. So my works in progress. These are new projects for me. So in one of my Snap project bags, and I'll chat more about project bags at the end, I have some broken seed stitch socks. Try saying that fast quickly. Broken seed stitch socks. I am using a couple of balls of finish yarn again. So this is Nalle by Nobita. So Nalle means teddy bear, so it's got little teddy bears on it. And this is what I would say is slightly more than fingering weight yarn. It suggests using 3mm needles, which I'm sorry I can't remember the US size. So slightly thicker than fingering. And I had bought this grey one on a trip to Finland a few years back, just kind of assuming that it was a self-striping yarn or a self-patterning yarn, but it turns out that it's just variegated. And I don't mean just because I love variegated yarns, they definitely have their place, but I did try to cast these on and they sort of come up with a sock that's a bit like that. And it's nice, but I love my greys and blacks and those kind of colours, so I was just a little bit disappointed that it wasn't going to be stripy. I have a few other colours in the same kind of yarn, so I was looking at which colours to use. I decided to go for these because I thought that the red isn't in the grey, because I had some blues that I was thinking about merging, but I thought that then it might lose the pattern of the sock. And two, I think that they look nice together. So this is the sock so far, and this is a free pattern on Ravelry by Hanna Levaniemi. Sometimes it takes me a little bit of time, especially when I'm talking in English, to switch my brain over to Finnish, and sometimes my brain is in Finnish and I find English hard. I don't know if other people who are bilingual find that, but yeah. So Hanna Leveniemi, and this is how they're turning out. So you can see the grey variegation in between the red, and I really like how they're turning out. So that's the cuff, obviously, and the leg. I'm knitting these actually on 2.5mm needles because the pattern suggested using a tighter gauge, and so that's a US 1.5, and I cast on with 56 stitches. I think from back here it looks a little bit odd, but in person I think it actually looks better than what it does on the screen. So I'm not sure yet how long these cuffs are going to be, and I'm not entirely sure if these are going to be socks for me or for a friend, so I'll keep working on that and see how I go. It's not the sort of pattern that you would pick up if you don't enjoy purling that much, because there is a lot of purling, but I think it's a pretty pattern, so it's worth the effort. My next work in progress is happily living in my yarn bowl from Carcore Pottery, and I've been carting this yarn bowl all around the house, and I decided that for a pretty yarn bowl I needed to have some pretty yarn, and I finally cast on this yarn from Hedgehog Fibres. It's in there, it's a sock base, and I have left their tag somewhere, but it's the Malice colourway, and I love, love, love the browns in here and the speckles. And I was thinking that what I really need is a pair of gloves. So I've knit a bunch of mittens before for when I've been travelling, and then I've also knit fingerless mittens, but I've never actually knit gloves with fingers on them. So I decided to make something up, and this is how they're looking so far. I'm knitting these on my carbons, which are, I think these are 2.25mm carbons. All the markings have rubbed off on them, so yeah, 2.25mm carbons, and that's how it's turning up so far. And I love the colours. I like the little specks of, there's electric blues and reds, and I think it looks even prettier in person. The brown's more of a coppery brown, and it's getting washed out by the light, but that's my glove so far. So yeah, I said that I'm just making this up as I go along, but it's kind of fitting like that. I'm currently increasing for the thumb on the side. I wanted a not too long cuff, but just enough that it can sit comfortably inside my sleeves, I guess, or my jacket once the weather gets cooler. Well, the weather is already cooler, and I'd like to be wearing these now, but I wanted it to be fairly fitted, so I kind of estimated based on how I knit my socks. I measured my socks and the gauge, and then took measurements for my wrist to see how many stitches to cast on. But I'll just sort of keep going a bit further until it reaches up to the joint of my thumb, separate off the thumb stitches, then keep going to the fingers, and then I need to figure out how to actually get fingers knit on. So I was getting inspired by the Tilly Trout podcast. I've been catching up on some of my favourite podcasters recently while I've been working, and I have them playing in the background, and she had been knitting some gloves recently, so I was inspired by that. I'll take a look at some of the patterns that she's been referring to, and then I've also got this magazine from Nobita again. It's called Lapaslehti, which means mitten magazine, and it has 31 different patterns for mittens. I think all of them are actual mittens rather than having gloves. But the thing that I love about this magazine is that it has some it's a basic mitten pattern with the, which way am I going? That way. With the thumb gusset, and then there are also patterns in here if you want different types of thumbs and different types of patterns for instance, this one's I should have looked through these pages a bit more, but it has different ways to do thumb openings, for instance, and how to then pick up the stitches, and it's a great reference. It's only available in Finnish, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it's available in Swedish, but I've referred to this a few times for doing different types of mittens, and there's, for instance, some different ways of doing the top of the mitten and then tops of thumbs, so 2 different methods for finishing up a thumb or a finger. So I'm referring to that, and then I'll see what else I can find once I have to figure out how to put these fingers on my mittens, or fingers on my gloves. So I'll share that once I get up to it. I have also been knitting on my sock yarn blanket. So it's got 3 new squares, and again these were sent to me by a viewer of the podcast. So this square is some Regia sock yarn. It doesn't have as much brown in it as I thought when I first saw the mini skein, but I really like the blacks and greys in here, and then this is sort of more of a beigey brown, but I might need to see if I can find some in a D-stash somewhere, because I think they'd make some great socks. This next one is washing out with the light that I've got in here, but it's a Renanoli, and it's actually a really beautiful kind of pastel-y yellow with bits of brown, bits of purple, bits of pinkish colour, and it's not the sort of skein that I would gravitate to myself. I don't tend to buy pastels that often, but as I was knitting it up I was really falling in love with it, and I was watching the Dyer's Notebook podcast earlier and trying to catch up on some of her past episodes, and it was definitely making me want to do some more yarn dyeing, and she was talking about choosing colours for yarn dyeing and talking about complementary colours such as yellow and purple, and there's just something about the amount of purple in amongst the yellow that really makes this particular one sing, but it just doesn't come up very well on screen, so you'll just have to trust me on that. But I have also been stalking out the Renanoli shop. She's a dyer from South Australia, and there's some gorgeous yarns in the shop at the moment, so one day soon I'll get some more Renanoli. And then this is the last of the new squares, and it is a Miss Click Clack yarn, and it's in the Cinnabar colourway, and it's beautiful, it's wonderful to work with. It's just as wonderful as all the other Miss Click Clacks that have gone into this blanket so far, and it was definitely making me want to buy Miss Click Clack. So that's one of the things with these sock yarn swaps and mini swaps, that when you get some beautiful yarns from other people, it definitely is a bit of an enabler and makes you want to buy more yarn. Not that that's a bad thing. So speaking of Miss Click Clack, I did place an order for some yarn for a breathing space pullover, and I only placed it today, but I'm still feeling that happy vibe of having purchased something that I've been thinking about for a while, I've been wanting to make a Miss Click Clack garment ever since I got my last order of Miss Click Clack, and admittedly I haven't done too much with that yarn. I have swatched a number of times for various things, but I don't know, they just feel so precious. So I've used a little bit in this shawl, and I've also used the Miss Click Clack mini skeins that have been sent to me by others. So this yarn that I've ordered today is definitely going to be used, and I'm looking forward to casting on the Breathing Space pullover very soon, and I'll share the yarns with you, of course, when I receive them. Speaking also of Miss Click Clack, there is a block sock knit along that is starting in her Ravelry group on May 3rd. It goes until August 3rd, and it looks like a lot of fun. So I'm not entirely sure of the rules for this year, but I've been having a look at last year's knit along thread, and there were some gorgeous socks in there, so I'm planning to take part. I'm not sure if I'll cast on exactly on May 3rd, but probably, because yeah, I want to take part in the fun. So if you're interested and you've got some Miss Click Clack in your stash, then pop over to Miss Click Clack's Ravelry group to check out the knit along once it starts up. I have also, yeah, this is the acquisition segment now, I think it's turned out to be. I have also picked up a couple of prizes for an upcoming knit along for the Give Me a Crown group. I haven't quite figured out what the knit along will be yet, or maybe it'll just be a general giveaway. So yeah, I'll share some more news about that once I figure out all the ins and outs. And I think that's it for just the sort of crafty side of this particular podcast. So if you're not interested in the rest, then thanks for watching. For those who are interested in shop news, I have been rearranging the sewing studio, which is, you can't quite see, but it's around me. I have my ironing table beside me, I've got sewing machine on the side, and I've been working on products for the shop. I guess if you haven't been to my shop before, which is Give Me a Crown on Etsy, it is a bit eclectic in the mix of fabrics. I kind of use a little bit of this, that and everything, so I wouldn't say that there's a particular style to my products. But if there is something that a fabric that you like, but it's not in the type of bag that you're interested in, then pop me a note, and I can always check if I have more of that fabric available so that I can custom make something for you. I don't charge any extra for custom orders, so it's just the same price as what the other products are, unless it's a custom size, in which case I'll base it on the amount of fabric and time that goes into that project. I have put up quite a few new sock project bags with the snaps, so I'll just show you a couple now. This one has been sold, but I can make another one if need be. So these have got snaps on them which pop open, and the label is on the inside, and it has a strap for carrying it along. So that one's, yeah, as I mentioned, been sold. The colours in here are not awesome, but it is a white bag with black flowers. I've also got that in this newspaper style print, so it has typewriters and pens and things. I've also used this fabric for a number of other size project bags. There's an island holiday, so it has palm trees and little sailing boats and flowers on it. Perfect for taking on a holiday. I made a bag with pirates on it. This one is very similar to one that you might have seen if you watch the Rosehip Knits podcast. She has one in a slightly different style bag, but it's her daughter likes carrying it around apparently. So if you have kids, something like this might be useful, or if you just fancy yourself as a bit of a pirate. And there's this one, which has got a kind of wallpaper style print on it, and this is the same as the one that I have. And there's a few more, but I'm not entirely sure. I think I've probably put them in the storage box already. So pop over to the shop if you're interested in a snap project bag. They're great if you don't like zippers, and they also work as a bit of a yarn bowl where you can put your yarn in and take your yarn out from in between the snaps. What else? General chatter then. I did drive myself over to Orange last week. It's not that far away, but I'm still getting used to this whole driving thing. I think that's the only time that I've started up the car in the past week is to drive to Orange, so I might get to the point where I want to go driving twice a week, but it's just a bit of getting used to. I'm missing my bicycle. This town's a little bit too small that I haven't actually taken my bike out yet, because I think it would take me roughly a minute to ride from one end of town to the other. So I'd be doing circles basically. Yeah, I'm used to, in Sydney there's a place called Centennial Park which had a 5-kilometre sort of bike track, and I'd cycle up there and go around the track 3 or 4 or 5 times depending on how energetic I was feeling. And yeah, I'm missing that a bit, but I've started looking at bike racks for the car so that I might be able to take my bike over to Orange where there's meant to be some great bike trails. So yep, so I drove over to Orange. I had a few things that I needed to pick up, but I also stopped by a shop called Caboodle of Orange Gifts. I'd read that they had some yarn, and they definitely had a lot of nice pretty gifts. And then at the back of the store they had a little yarn heaven. They had yarns that are fairly standard. I didn't go through everything because I wasn't looking for anything in particular, but I did have a look at their sock yarns. They had some opal, for instance, but the colours just didn't sing to me. So I sort of, knowing how much stash I've got, and knowing that I was planning on placing an order with Miss Click Clack, I thought I should control myself. So I had a look, but I didn't sort of go into it too deeply. They had some Clackheaton, Lana Gross, I think that one is called. I can't remember, sorry if I butchered that. And they had some Knit Pro needles. They had a bunch of knitting pattern books. So it seems like a good shop to be able to pop into if I'm working on a project that I don't have yarn for, but I should always look in my stash first. They were very friendly in there, so it's well worth popping in if you are in the area. But their gifts were also really nice. They had a lot of Australian made gifts, so I bought a card for a friend of mine from there, and I'll definitely be popping in there again. There was also quite a lot of cafes there, so I think next time I just need to plan my day a little bit better so that I don't know, get there earlier, have lunch, and then head back. It was definitely busy in Orange. It was a little bit of a shock after a few weeks out here to be in a town which had traffic lights and people and cars, and I think I've gotten quite used to the idea of being in a quiet place where not much happens. So I dread to think how I'm going to feel going back into Sydney when I head back in a few months' time. But I know that I'll then be coming back to the countryside. So, anyway, I also stopped off in a town called Milthorpe on the way back. So I picked up a tourist brochure, as you do. It's just a little country town, but they have some really cute shops, sort of selling homewares. Homewares, is that the right term? Sort of things for the bathroom and knickknacks to hang around the house and all sorts of bits and pieces. They had a couple of cafes that seemed to be very popular, and I'm not sure if it's sort of an olden day town, but there's meant to be some great markets there, but they're only twice a year, so I've just missed one. I have to wait till December. I'm pretty sure that there's more than that. I thought that I read somewhere that there's a once a month market, so I'll need to look into that. There's apparently a sweet shop which I somehow managed to completely miss, and a chocolate shop. Oh no, it's a chocolate maker available at some of the stores, but I'll have to check that out. And yeah, so it was a nice little town to pop by. It was very, very pretty with autumn, all the leaves changing colour, and I took a couple of photos, and I'll see if I can pop them in at the end. I'll try to label whatever I've taken photos of, because I've been randomly trying to take little bits of video and photographs, but most of the time the things that I'm seeing that I want to share, it's while I'm driving, and I can't just pull over and snap a photo. So, or maybe I could, I'm just not feeling brave enough to do that yet. So probably in the next week I might take a drive in the other direction and try to hunt down some other places where I can get yarn. There are some sort of fully fledged yarn shops in the other direction, so I think I'll go and try to track them down, make sure I check what days they're open so that I don't end up driving a really long way only to find that they say come back another day, because that's one thing that does happen around here, is that not all shops will be open all days. There's just not the foot traffic to warrant that. So, but I will share my adventures with searching for yarn in the Central West as I do so. And I think that's about it for this week. I will get this video edited and uploaded, and then I think I'm going to knit. It's a bit of a cooler day today, sun shining outside, so I might go for a wander in the afternoon. I should check in on the garden. It's one of my tasks here while I'm house sitting, is to make sure that the garden is okay, and so far I don't think I've managed to kill anything, which is very good. I also am thinking about setting up a raised vegetable garden, so I might do some research into that. I'm not sure how good a time of year this is to be starting it, but I think I might be able to get it set up before it gets too cold, and then still be able to get some winter veggies happening. So we'll see. I will share those adventures as well once they happen. So I hope you're well. I hope you're getting plenty of time for knitting and crocheting and sewing and whatever else, spinning. And I'll see you soon.